Boris Johnson and his officials are accused of lying about what he knew about claims about Chris Pincher, the Tory MP who resigned as the Deputy Chief Whip last Thursday after he was accused of groping two men in a club in central London. Since then, a slew of other claims have emerged about Mr. Pincher from over several years, several of which are very hotly denied by him. But the question for number 10, the far more important question, is how much did Boris Johnson know about these claims before he gave him the job of Deputy Chief Whip in February 2022? Now, the problem here is that we've been told a few different things by Downing Street, and those things contradict each other. I'm going to run through them now so you can understand why people are having so many concerns about this. It starts with a briefing we had on Friday from Downing Street, where the PM's deputy spokesman told us that Boris Johnson was not aware of any allegations at the time that he gave Chris Pincher that whip's job in February. The spokesman later, curiously, corrected that to any specific allegations, but we still weren't entirely sure what that meant. Throughout the weekend, Downing Street was referring to this briefing and sent out to raise coffee the Work and Pension Secretary, who insisted on the morning shows, and I quote,
"Well, I'm saying that I've been informed this morning he did not know about specific allegations. As has been well reported, people spoke to him on Friday, and in agreement with the Chief Whip, the whip was removed from Chris Pincher, who, by the way, is now under a formal investigation process, and it's important that process is allowed to happen."
So that's very clear then. By this point on Sunday, we had a feeling that maybe Boris Johnson had heard some rumours or some general speculation, but he had not been made aware of specific damaging claims about Chris Pincher. That line even held to Monday morning, where Will Quince, a junior minister, went on the TV and defended Boris Johnson. Mr. Quince said,
"I anticipated this question. I spoke to number 10 both yesterday and this morning, and I asked firmly and clearly for an explanation as to what had happened, and I have been given a categorical assurance that the Prime Minister was not aware of any specific allegation or complaint made against the former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher."
That line held for about 3 or 4 hours. At a briefing on Monday, the Prime Minister's spokesman said, in fact, Boris Johnson had been aware of, quote, some allegations that were, quote, either resolved or did not progress, but that in the absence of a formal complaint in February 2022, it wasn't appropriate to stop an appointment on the basis of unsubstantiated allegations. Now, fast forward to this morning, and that entire line has fallen apart. First of all, there was a formal complaint. It was about Chris Pincher's behaviour or alleged behaviour made in October 2019. It was fully investigated by the Foreign Office, which upheld the complaint, although it didn't start formal disciplinary action, and Mr. Pincher was allowed to keep his job. What's more, Boris Johnson was briefed about this complaint verbally and about the outcome of the investigation in 2020. Now, Downing Street are now claiming that when they asked Boris Johnson about it on Friday, just gone, he had essentially forgotten that he'd been briefed about this case. Whether he'd forgotten about it at the time he gave Mr. Pincher a whip's job, we still don't know, because Downing Street have been unable to say and don't know his state of mind at the time. What's more, there was a second complaint about Mr. Pincher, and that was made at the time of the reshuffle in February 2020. Number 10 have confirmed that concerns were raised about a completely different allegation to what happened in 2019. They were referred to the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team, and then it went back to Boris Johnson for a decision. It was a completely different allegation, we don't know what it was, and Boris Johnson decided to give him the job anyway. Now, what was that review by the ethics team? We don't really know. Basically, it only took 3 or 4 hours at most on the day. It didn't sort of do a full investigation. It just looked at whether the allegations were sort of substantiated as they were. It found the allegations at that point weren't substantiated, but importantly, and this is the opposite to what some sources were telling us, it didn't clear the appointment. It didn't sort of give the green light for the appointment. All it said was that the allegations were unsubstantiated. It was for Boris Johnson and for his aides to make the decision about whether to give him the job. Now, the problem with this is Conservative MPs, and no doubt some members of the Cabinet, will be quite cross about having to go out and defend number 10's line when number 10's line seems to have changed quite a few times over the course of the stories over this weekend, and we don't know what more could come out. So what was a story about an MP and his alleged actions, some of which he strenuously denies, has become a story about Boris Johnson and about whether he's telling the truth when he says what he knew and what he didn't.